to some budgetary issues or some things that they're working on. So I'll speak kind of specifically to the things that I'm working on. And I brought the bills this morning, but I think a lot of you, if you get my newsletter, got kind of a preview of that this week. If not, let me know before you leave, and we'd love to put you on our email list. We don't send one every day. We do one bi-weekly so that we don't fill up your email list. It doesn't look like spam, and hopefully the links in there are helpful to you as we go throughout this session and our contact information. Before I get started though, I would like to say thank you to our veterans in the room. If we do have some veterans, if you just raise your hand and let us say thank you to you. Because we're able to enjoy, quite frankly, these types of meetings. To come together and talk about our ideas, to participate and to engage in our government. And for that, we owe you a great debt of gratitude, so thank you very much. One thing that I spent a lot of time at the Capitol this week was House Bill 146. It's something I'm very, very passionate about, firefighter cancer. That was something we worked on last year. We had House Bill 216, and we dropped House Bill 216 because national statistics, and specifically here in Georgia, we started seeing more and more diagnosis of cancer with firefighters. And this was starting to become increasingly alarming, quite frankly, in the public safety community. So we looked at other states and how they were addressing this issue, and come to find out that at that point, 36 other states had recognized the fact that firefighters had a higher risk factor, sometimes 2, 3, and in certain cancers, 4 times a greater risk of being exposed or being diagnosed with certain types of cancer. And so we took an approach here in Georgia based upon what the 36 other states have done, and we wanted to put cancer in the comp section, because if it was a disease or an illness that was obtained through the line of duty, we would put that into the Georgia's occupational disease statute. We already have 2 illnesses in that statute, and that's heart attack and asbestosis. The highest percentage of the ones claimed in those particulars are firefighters. So we thought, okay, well, we're seeing occurrences of cancer more often. Why don't we just go ahead and put this into the comp code? Other states did something different. They went with a presumption. And what that means is that if you're a firefighter and you are diagnosed with cancer, then when you go to your comp hearing or you submit a comp claim, the court just presumes, without any evidence on face value, that disease or that illness was obtained through fighting fire. Well, we thought that might be a little bit of a high burden for cities and counties, so we rolled that back, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that you can prove that. So we went with the standard of evidence at a preponderance level, which means that the preponderance or the burden of proof is still on the firefighter to show that that cancer he was exposed to that cancer, or she was exposed to that cancer during the line of duty. We passed that bill through the House with 146 yay votes. I think it's 22 no votes. The Senate passed it unanimously. I'd like to thank the 2 senators that are here for standing with their firefighters. But unfortunately, we didn't get the bill all the way into law, and there were some questions. And so we've spent the summer addressing those questions and working with GMA and ACCG, and what they have proposed is an insurance package, which I, quite frankly, see as a pretty good option. And I want to thank the GMA and the ACCG for working with us. I mean, they came to the table and really sat down and said, how can we help? Since then, 2 other states, Ohio, as of December 7th, Governor Kasich just signed in a cancer compensation bill for their firefighters. So we're now at 38 states. Georgia would be the 39th state to be able to sign that in. And what that package is going to look like, once we can get the particulars laid out, or we do have the particulars laid out prior to the committee hearing, is that it's going to be a disability package. Firefighters, upon diagnosis, will get an immediate cash payout. This removes any type of litigation. So it doesn't put the cities or the counties in litigating against their firefighters during this critical time. After 6 months of the diagnosis, there'll be a reevaluation. If the firefighter can come back to work, they can be reevaluated. If not, at the 6-month level, or the 6-month time frame, they will then go on to what mimics a comp salary protection program, which would be 60% salary protection for 3 years. All right, now the bill says 3.5 years. At the end of that 3.5 years, the benefit would stop. So that's what we're working on right now. Hopefully that bill goes into committee on Monday, and we can work and get this bill passed out. The Speaker is very adamant about getting the bill passed out soon, getting it over to the Senate so that we can start the committee process over there. But when you think about everything that our firefighters and all of our law enforcement have to deal with on a daily basis, it's something that, yes ma'am, Mary?
I'll see, you're saying the compensation package, but is there also some insurance coverage for them for all those expenses? Because, you know, if they're not working, there's also, they're not being covered by the insurance? Or?
Yeah, there would be a supplemental medical package, which is a part of that. But that initial cash payout would help fund medical and insurance purchases, possibly through the COBRA program for a set amount of time. And so that's kind of we'll start debating that on Monday. But it's something that at this point, the firefighters have been at the table. They have been able to give their input, and that's what the negotiation process kind of resulted in this bill. And meeting with them yesterday, the firefighters, they were pretty happy with the package. And so we're just going to move forward and see if we can get this all the way through. And the governor has expressed that he would be in favor of a package deal as well. Another bill that would apply to the ladies in the room, I know my wife has been very active in following this bill. It's called the upskirting bill. I think I've spoke about this once before, but if you think about it, it's put it in my newsletter. It's a little bit ridiculous to think about the fact that we don't have any place in the code section that actually covers this type of behavior. Excuse me, but it's based off of a case out of Houston County where a mother and her child were shopping at a local grocery store, and lo and behold, had been followed around the store by an employee of the store. And the individual seen on the surveillance video looks like they're either messing with the shelf or whatever, but then reaches down to their shoe and hits, be it a cell phone or some type of device that starts recording, while the foot is strategically placed up under the customer's garments. She recognizes what's going on. There was a conviction in Houston County. That case went up to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals overthrew it and said there's nothing in the code section. And I think what they really wanted the legislature to address this. The courts have said you don't want us to be active as judges, so we can't rule on things that aren't in the code section. And 20 years ago, who would have thought that we would be walking around with cameras, all of us, and being able to record and do the things that we can do on a telephone. So the legislature we dropped, I'm co-sponsoring House Bill 9. Shaw Blackman, who is from Houston County, I've been working with him over the summer, we're going to do this because right now the court's problem was that there doesn't seem to be something in code section that says there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place. And so what we need to do is address that and say that, well, there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place under your clothing. So that's what we're going to address. But we want to be careful that we actually don't interfere with law enforcement's activities and being able to surveil and do their job. So we need to be very careful on how this is crafted. And I definitely welcome your input as we go through this committee process. Let me see here. I've got another bill that we want to work on, and we're already looking at some tweaks on this bill, dealing with the fact that we have to be mindful of the federal funds that are involved in this. But I'm working with, it's a bipartisan bill, both Democrats and Republicans, that would look at the lifetime free hunting license for veterans. And I think what we're going to try to do is, right now veterans get a free license for a year, and then afterwards they pay the full freight. What we're going to do is probably look at lowering that, because for every license, and I didn't know this, for every hunting license we sell, you get a federal match on that, and that goes to preserving your parks and your wildlife management, and thanks to conservation use purposes. So what we don't want to do is stop actually getting the license or stop selling the license. So what we can do is, for our veterans, is actually lower that price and have a very set low rate. which is a little bit more of an incentive to just say how much we appreciate them, and something to kind of just say thank you for what they've done for us. And it's a very small thing, but I think it's important anytime we can do those types of things. I think 2 bills that have flown under the radar screen, cannabis bills, not got a lot of coverage. But what we will do in all seriousness is we are going to do an expansion bill. This year we've got some, yes ma'am.
Go back to the lifetime, what was the number on that bill? Do you have one yet?
House Bill 25. So that started out as possibly looking at after the year free, with just making it a lifetime free. And so we're probably going to look at after the year free license, then just doing a reduced license price for veterans, instead of making it a lifetime free license. Good morning. House Bill 36 and our House Resolution 36, House Bill 65 are going to be our cannabis bills this year. And what we want to do is these are not smoking bills. And I think a lot of you know where I stand on this, and I want to be as transparent as possible. I've got friends that feel differently, and that's okay. And I'm glad that we've been able to have productive conversations, informative educational conversations. But I do want to say about House Bill 65, the expansion bill, is we've got some different sponsors this year. One of the sponsors is Paul Battles from Cartersville. And I don't know if any of you know Paul Battles. Paul Battles is a minister, and he's always been a great example for me. I've become a good friend of him over the last couple of years. And I was interested. I said, Paul, this is interesting. We're actually gonna strike the severe and end-stage clauses in some of these bills, or all of the diagnosis. But we're also gonna add some diagnosis to the bill. And I'm just interested, Paul, you haven't been a co-sponsor in the past. What's changed? And after a very heartfelt conversation with him, he said, Micah, I haven't. I've always supported the bill, but I've never co-sponsored. He said, but my son-in-law has cancer, and this is my daughter's husband and the father of my grandchildren has got lymphoma, and he's 12 small tumors. But he has, since taking the cannabis oil, or being treated with the cannabis oil, his oncologist reported back just before session started that they have actually seen a reduction in the tumors. The tumors are actually getting smaller. And he said, Micah, I can tell you that all this has taken place since we've changed that kind of medical makeup of his treatment direction. And he said, for me, this is now dealing with my family. And I think that's what a lot of people are experiencing, is when they have that personal example that affects them, their loved one. Over the summer, an individual called me, and he asked to remain nameless, but he had opposed our bills. And that was okay. That's his right. And he said, I opposed it. I was very forthright with you and Alan both on the fact that this did not need to take a recreational course. And that's not something that Alan nor I have ever wanted it to take, and have stayed fast with the medical direction thus far. And he said, but a family friend of ours is dealing with something that at first I thought was really not even an issue, but to see that situation up close and to have gone through what he's gone through, and us seeing that, if this would help him, I would be 100% in favor, and I'll be your biggest cheerleader next year. And so that's interesting. There you've got 2 personal examples. So what we're going to do in the end stage, while we're ending it, a lot of people are going to say, well, you had cancer on there for end stage. You had Parkinson's for end stage, sickle cell for end stage. Well, a lot of these patients are coming back and they're saying, hey, we've actually seen very positive results. Well, if we're seeing positive results from a medicine, why should we prohibit someone from taking it until just before they're ready to die? Exactly. If they can start treating with it before it gets to that level and it starts showing positive, maybe there's an opportunity for the disease or the illness to take a different route, or at least slow the growth or deterioration that disease would cause. So that's why we're wanting to do that there. There's also a section of that bill that goes into, it's on line 45, and I'll have all these bills on my Facebook page, where it says the board shall, current law says this: the board shall require physicians to issue quarterly reports to the board. Such reports shall require physicians to provide information including, but not limited to, dosages recommended for a particular condition, clinical responses, compliance responses to treatment, side effects, and drug interactions. We didn't do that until Dr. Flamini and Dr. Holt, the two most well-known pediatric neurologists, came to us and asked us to do that. So these are the two pediatric neurologists treating the majority of these patients. And they've said, listen, we don't do this for any other medicine. So why are we sectioning out this one? We don't do this for any other type of treatment program that we do. And also, we've got folks that either can't get the medicine, so once they come to us as a patient, there's really nothing for us to report unless we do have a family that has gone out of state, obtained the oil, come back certified with a treatment regimen with us, and the paperwork is just almost more than what it is to get out of state, get back in state, and get the treatment process underway. So that particular section of the bill actually came by request of the two pediatric neurologists that were actually working with the patients. In this case, it would be the children with the seizure diagnoses. Also, we have lifted only individuals residing in the state for at least 1 year, or a child born in this state less than 1 year old shall be eligible for registration under this code section. This was put in there because there was a fear that we would have an influx of people coming from other states into Georgia to try and obtain the cannabis oil. Well, we don't create cannabis oil here. We don't manufacture, we don't cultivate, we don't do anything. So if you understand the cost, which the families that we're working with, is about a $7,500 cost to get from Georgia to Colorado to get set up, and then you have to purchase the medicine. So what this was put in there for is that we've got military bases all across our state. And the families that were coming are being transferred or stationed here. Some of them actually had children with epilepsy, or some had been diagnosed or had a spouse diagnosed with cancer, inquired about Georgia's program, and had to wait because, oh, well, you don't meet the residency requirement. Again, if they're in this state, especially if they're serving on the resolution, House Resolution 36 actually takes the cultivation issue that we've been working on and puts it to a statewide vote. If you think that we should be cultivating it here in the state of Georgia, then you'll get to vote on that. If you don't, then you can vote no.